Welcome back. I'm joined now by Christian Binder and Greg Brzezowski to talk some early season baseball. Guys, I know you've been waiting for opening day for a few months. Well, it's finally here, so let's wrap up spring training and move forward to the 162-game season. Christian, what was the most significant thing to come out of spring training?
It's got to be the Detroit Tigers with above 500 record. I mean, this is a team, granted, they went to a one-game playoff last year, but they had a lot of question marks coming into this offseason. Now they've got newcomers in Johnny Damon and Austin Jackson. And Austin Jackson, a trade from the Yankees, top prospect in the organization, batting leadoff as a rookie. He's got the green light to steal any base he wants from manager Jim Leyland. And now look at the pitching. Justin Verlander, 269 strikeouts last year. Rick Porcello, not showing any signs of the sophomore slump. Jeremy Bonnerman's bouncing back. Dontrelle Willis is bouncing back. This is a team that's got a lot to look forward to this year.
Well, I'll keep it in the same division, Christian, because all the big stories in spring training circled around one team, the Minnesota Twins. Good news first. Joe Mauer, AL MVP, gets re-signed to an 8-year, $184 million extension, keeping the golden boy of Minnesota with his hometown team. Bad news, they lose closer Joe Nathan to Tommy John surgery. John Roush, former setup man, now has to come back and try and close, and Nathan has to work really hard to get back for next year's opening season.
6'11", John Roush, tallest player in the majors.
Big guy, yeah.
All right, guys, another big story in spring training is, how the prospects are going to fare. So do you think the prospects should be sent to the minors or start the season in the major league club like, Hayward?
It's no question. They got to go to the minors first. They don't have the experience they need yet. The highest competition they've played against are guys in high school or college. How does that qualify you to go face Albert Pujols or go to, into the batter's box against
Greg,
Tim
I will tell you
Lincecum?
how, because Jason Hayward hit a 3-run homer in his first MLB
Congratulations to
at-bat.
Jason
Drove in
Hayward. He's
4
a
runs.
freak of nature. He's the exception, though.
So what about those freaks in nature? Steven Strasburg's a freak of nature, but they sent him to the minors. No, he should be in the majors now. He'd be the ace of the national staff.
Let's compare it to another sport, the NBA. Guys coming straight out of high school being thrusted against the greatest players in the sport in the world. How do they fare most of the times? You have your exceptions like LeBron James, but then
Kobe
you're
Bryant,
Kwame Browns of the world.
Kevin Garnett.
Yeah,
three guys
very
right
true.
there.
Yeah, it's hard for the major league players, though, to adjust. They don't know what it's like to play a 162-game schedule. They're not ready.
It's also kind of weird about the MLB because rookies can be rookies for like 3 years.
Exactly.
And they don't play a full
Your
season.
eligibility is always weird.
All right, guys, so, two very competitive people, but when we look at the divisions of baseball, what do you think is the most competitive division in all sports?
AL Central, hands down.
What?
AL Central. Look, I mentioned it earlier.
Wow.
Detroit and Minnesota went to a one-game playoff last year, all right? That rarely happens.
Exactly.
No team
Great
in
game.
this division will win over 90 games, but that is really competitive. And Chicago has gotten better this season despite the really bad contracts from Kenny Williams. But this will be this is a 3-team race. Absolutely.
Yeah, you want to know another great 3-team race? The
With more
AL
talent.
East, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Rays, being called by some front offices in baseball the best 3 teams in the sport. They're going to be fighting to the end for the 2 playoff spots because the wild card is coming out of the AL East.
Of course, but listen, the Yankees in the most competitive division last year won it by 8 games.
Yeah, because the Red Sox tailed off and the Rays had injury problems and their rotation was not as good. They're improved this year. You have a young guy like Wade Davis coming in. David Price has more experience. It's going to be a lot more competitive, and these teams are going to fight to the end of the season.
AL Central, hands down.
Not to mention, Orioles also look a lot more improved this year, too. They're going to round out the division.
As someone at the Red Sox-Yankees opener for MLB baseball, I'm going to have to go with the AL East here. But let's go to the flip side of the coin. What do you think is the least competitive division in baseball?
There's no question. It's the NL Central. I mean, the only race that's going to be happening in this division is worst team in the NL between the Pirates and the Astros. There's no competition. No one can contend with the Cardinals.
Absolutely. It was the second largest gap between first and second last year. St. Louis not really edged out Chicago
Yeah,
by
you can't even call it
7.5 games. But second place had the second lowest winning percentage of any second place team at .516, and third place was below 500.
Exactly. You had 4 teams below 500 in that division, with the Brewers, being the best at 496. It was awful. Terrible
Absolutely
baseball.
terrible. NL Central is by far the easiest division to play in.
Even having a 6 team can't help them out. But,
Exactly.
So talking about this, how weak the NL Central is, what do you think about a division realignment in baseball?
Absolutely not. If you're going to play with the big boys, you got to beat the big boys. No handing the Rays the AL Central just because they can't beat the Yankees and the Red Sox, because inevitably they'd have to play them in the playoffs.
Christian, great minds think alike, because I absolutely agree. How would you feel if you were a fan of the Indians or the Royals and you're being told by Major League Baseball, hey, you guys aren't really going to contend this year. You might switch some players to the Rays so they can get the playoffs and you guys can get, smacked around by the Yankees and the Red Sox for 18 games. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to their fan bases. They don't deserve to see that poor quality of baseball.
Plus, it just doesn't logistically make sense. Cleveland is not in the East and Tampa is not in the Central.
But I guess Major League Baseball just doesn't care anymore about travel times or how hard it would be to actually figure this out year to year. They're not thinking straight.
Absolutely not.
Very solid points throughout the whole block, but it seems to be time to pay the sponsors. But when we return, Eric Kendall and Alex Rosenbaum will sit down with me to talk about the tradition unlike any other. Stay tuned.